Hey, what's going on, everybody? BDO44 coming at you in another video. All right, so I just wanted to talk a little basketball. I just got through watching John Morant's interview with Jalen Rose. I thought it went pretty well. I thought Jalen Rose asked some pretty tough questions. I thought John Morant answered them in some solid PR ways. I didn't think it was any lies, anything like that told. I just felt like he was well prepped for what it was that he was supposed to be saying and what it is he wasn't. And I think that's the only way to play it. With that being said, he's supposed to be serving an 8-game suspension. 5 of those games already served. And with that being said, he's going to be back in 3 games. And furthermore, I think the Western Conference is going to have to deal with a version of Ja that doesn't have the other stuff attached to it. And that is probably bad for the rest of the Western Conference. I'm going to tell you right now, a healthy John Morant with the Memphis Grizzlies right now is a contender for sure. Because at the end of the day, this Memphis Grizzlies team has been winning games since he went out. They were in 3rd place when he went out. They are now in 2nd place. They've actually ascended since he went out. And I think it speaks to my theory about their team, which is that he doesn't affect winning and losing. He's just icing on the cake that will help them down the stretch basketball game, close basketball games, and of course, give them that superstar defensive draw that can kind of slot everybody into their regular positions and have them play the way they're supposed to be playing instead of doing more than they're asked to do. With him coming back, you got to deal with the fact of the matter that when he went out, it wasn't but 2 games before that circumstance where he went for 38, 10, and 10 against the Lakers in a victory on our home floor. So that's the level he was playing at when he was dealing with the stress of having everything risked. The consequences of being embarrassed about his behavior. He was doing that. So for me, it's like, I don't think that he's coming back any worse. I think that what he just went through probably gave him a clarity of mind and a certain shake up in his world that put him in a position to be probably a better basketball player now. A less distracted basketball player now, a more rested basketball player, a more intent basketball player, improving to the world that he's not what it is that we just saw. I would not be surprised if John Morant wins the West. Now, I would not be surprised. Because I look at the Sacramento Kings and I say, as good as I believe them to be, they've started losing some games. They started slipping just a little bit. And I don't know if they peaked early or if what I'm looking at is just them going through ebbs and flows and stuff like that. But they did fall to 3rd place, and I don't love that for them. They need to stay above the fray, Sacramento, in my opinion. You do not at all want to lose ground when Ja's out, and that's exactly what they did. And I think that speaks to the possibility of them just overall not quite being the cream of the crop in the Western Conference. They're not. They're hecka good, super hella good, but they are not. They're not supposed to be losing their 2nd place spot to a team that doesn't have its best player. Nah. That speaks to them just not quite having a stranglehold on things. And I don't want to disrespect the Nuggets, but I just don't look at them as a real 1 seed. They're gonna have to prove to me they're a real 1 seed. I'm anticipating them either getting beaten the first round or having like a 7-game series in the first round and have to prove themselves against a team that's probably just as good as them at the 8th spot. I really think that. I think they're gonna fight. They're gonna have to fight tooth and nail to get out of the first round. I don't believe in them like that. And so, as they've been losing games, they ain't got no business losing. That further gives me confidence that that's the case. And Nuggets are not the team I fear at the top of that West. They're not. In fact, I think Sacramento is a little more scary to me. And Memphis with John Morant is probably just as scary. And it's a little tricky given what I'm trying to say versus what it is that's actually coming out of my mouth. But I look at Memphis and I say they're going to have to prove that they're going to do that when Ja comes back. For all I know, they don't play as well when Ja comes back for a plethora of unknown reasons. Who knows, right? So this is all in theory. I think what I'm looking at from from Sacramento ain't in theory. They're losing games. What I'm looking at from Denver ain't in theory. They losing games. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. The Clippers Also, a team we need to take very seriously. They just beat the Golden State Warriors in a barn burner last night at home. Russell played better, no turnovers from what I understand. I didn't see highlights, but they won. They won their game. And as I told people, I don't think the Clippers are going to fall off. Even though I've been on record having different thoughts about the Clippers, the last one I landed on is that this Western Conference just opened up as much for them as it did for the Lakers. And even though people aren't paying as much attention to the Clippers, they really legitimately have a great opportunity to make the playoffs and miss the play-in tournament entirely. Excuse me, very good chance. So I like their situation as much as I like ours as a Laker fan. They're finding synergy at the right time. They're winning the games they're supposed to win, and they have the record to give them the cushion that some of the teams that I think may be just as good as them, like the Lakers, don't have. The Lakers really hurt themselves last night. You know, I'm not losing any faith in my roster. Obviously, in fact, I have more faith in my roster than I do most rosters in the league because we're playing without our best and second best player and still managing to win some games. Last night's Rocket game, Laker fans are very upset about it, as myself included. A lot of people are trying to figure out who to blame. A lot of people are blaming AD. I'm listening to their argument. I'm listening to their argument, but I don't know if I share it. At the end of the day, would I love for Anthony Davis to pull a Kobe and just say, I don't care what's going on, I'm going to play anyway? I would. But do I think Anthony Davis would be wise to do that based on the fragility of his body? No, he would not. He would not, y'all. At the end of the day, and this is gonna frustrate some people, but it's just the point of view I see there. Him risking his health against the plan for his health is not something he should be willing to do for our team. Because and I was listening to athletes talk about injuries, they don't have these breaks when injuries hit. You don't get to go home and have a comfortable life away from the court and then come back to the court and you're just injured there. No, it doesn't work like that. You got to deal with your injury all night, all day. And so I don't want our players to risk injury, serious injury, for the betterment of what it is that we're doing. If the injury risk is as serious as Anthony Davis's tend to be. Now, if he's a durable player like, somebody else, Russell Westbrook or something, and he decides to load manage that game, I'm looking at him and I'm saying, you're starting from a different space in regards to your health. You're expected to be healthy. We don't think it's much of a big risk for you missing these games. So I don't have any patience for that particular type of player missing this particular type of game. But Anthony Davis, we got to be ridiculously careful with his health. And if we're in a space where we want to risk his health, then we need to consider if we're the right team for him. Because that's $200 million player. And if your choices are going to keep him from being healthy, then obviously you're not the right place for him. Just like he's not the right place for you if you have to risk what it is he's capable of doing in order to get done what you need done. Again, wrong place for him. And that's the argument I've been making for the last year and a half, 2 years. Slotting him next to LeBron James at 38 years old is just not the best security blanket for your health as a franchise. Now, I like the core as it pertains to their health. I mean, it pertains to their talent, obviously, but not their health. And so, that's it, man. Can the core get it done? I love the idea of having such pantheon great players. And I know they're not past their prime. Even LeBron James can play at a level that's comparable to the best players in the league today if he's healthy. But it's not the point. It's about, can they do it when it matters most? Can they do it when they need to be on the floor in order for us to make these playoffs? And the answer is, as of right now, no. And we could blame Anthony Davis for not fighting tooth and nail to get on the court. But if you look at the bigger picture, all you're going to do if he gets hurt out there is talk about how they deviated from the plan, and the Los Angeles Lakers organization allowed their player to hurt and play knowing he was injury prone. You have so much at risk. Now you risk this season and next season. And how much sense does that make in the off season when you're considering the fullness of it all? It doesn't. It doesn't. If he gets hurt in that Rockets game and he's out for the season next year with an Achilles, it makes a whole lot less sense, and you're taking a whole lot more blowback than you do if you just play it safe and just sit him and deal with the consequences of what we're talking about right now, which is that you lost a game against the Rockets, but not mathematically out of the playoffs. I mean, it is what it is. You still got a chance to win. He goes down with an injury, you ain't got no chance of winning. and he would have went down with an injury because y'all went against the plan. See what I'm saying? Like, the argument that Laker fans are trying to make doesn't take into account what goes wrong when you do that. Now, it could very well go right. Hell, 90% chance it goes right. He needs to play. We need to win. He goes out there. He balls out. We win. Nothing happens. Everybody's happy. That's probably how it goes. But the problem is, once you do that, you get that 10% chance. Then you're dealing with hell and brimstone in response to it. That could have very easily been avoided by taking this risk and maybe losing the Houston game, and he's still healthy, and that's it. Everybody's pissed off because we lost a game we could have won, but nobody's coming back from serious injury 6, 7, 8 months from now. Now, the flip side is you could send him out there, he gets hurt in the Dallas game. But at least you didn't deviate from what it is within your control and your plan, causing the environment for which that could be occurred. Nobody's about to blame you for it. And that's really what you want. You don't want to be the cause for something going wrong with Anthony Davis if you're the Lakers, because you need the reputation of being competent, and you've made some decisions that would otherwise speak to the opposite. So it's not the time to be deviating from health plans. Now, the problem is you got to assess if there was something you could do as a Laker organization. This is what we talked about yesterday. If there's something you could do to make up for the problem, that's where the Lakers truly made their mistake. It has nothing to do with Anthony Davis not playing in back-to-backs. It's how they played Anthony Davis in the first game of that back-to-back and not having another rostered center in place for the circumstances. So as we've talked about that ad nauseum, that's about as much as I'm willing to say about that in this video. But that is exactly the problem. You take care of that business, and nobody's getting on you about not having enough against the Rockets. Nobody's getting on you about not playing AD. Nobody's getting on AD about whether or not he fought hard enough to play in the game. So that's really what it is. I'm listening to narrative creatives talk about how, Anthony Davis is ruining the circumstance with the Lakers by refusing to play in this game. And I'm like, the Lakers chose not to play Anthony Davis. If the Lakers gave him the okay to play, he runs. That's it. That's it. Now, you can get mad at the guy for being complicit to what the Lakers demanded, but you're also going to be mad at him for going against the Lakers, too. You're also going to be calling out how he's flexing his muscle as a star player and not respecting the franchise and creating all types of problems for the Lakers. And what precedent does that set for Anthony Davis as one of the best players? Now you're telling other players that they, too, can do that? Well, that's going to come back and bite you in the back in a different game when you need another player to play and he's doing what you did. It can't happen. So these are all things you got to think about. I think Anthony Davis not fighting the Lakers speaks to his understanding of his overall reputation. It's not wise to try to take into your hands what the organization's supposed to be controlling. Because at the end of the day, the organization is an organization. And if they can't pick and choose who's on their floor, then they've lost control of their organization. So if Anthony Davis is a player, is going to take that into his hands under these circumstances when his health is absolutely at risk, it just speaks to the lack of control the Lakers would have over their own organization, as to which it would probably be incumbent upon them to get rid of any player that would otherwise keep them from having control over their organization. You see how this becomes a problem? It becomes a huge problem. Now, when it comes to Kobe, you have the excuse of doing that because he gave you 20 years. He's not as fragile as Anthony Davis. He's much more important to what it is that you're doing because you didn't have another LeBron James behind him. So it's like if he don't play, you don't have your one, your two. It was both. He was AD and Bron in that era. So it's like it's a different energy. 20 years in, he had a different respect here. The endurance that he had to play through hurt and pain and all of that, it was a different expectation of what he can endure. So it's like you can't compare him to Anthony Davis. Just because of Kobe Bryant used to go crazy talking about you ain't about to sit me. He could endure it. He could endure it. Anthony Davis ain't about to endure that. So it's like, nah, we ain't gonna measure them the same. They ain't the same. We gotta treat Anthony Davis like Anthony Davis. I'm gonna treat him like Kobe Bryant. And even if we would have treated Kobe Bryant with a little more care, for which we've learned a lesson, here as you can see how we're handling Anthony Davis, maybe he would have been a little bit more durable for us throughout them 20 years. Maybe we could have helped him not let injuries not heal properly, so his shooting percentage could have been better. That hand wasn't handled correctly. Our organization could have did something about that. We didn't, because we were going to ride his broken hand to a championship, and we did. It was a sacrifice we all made, but I think he shot probably 30% after that for the rest of his career. He was bricking shots left and right, and it was because his finger was never the same. So you look at that, you realize the Lakers went through that, and it's like they learned that lesson. Went through Bynum, learned that lesson. So now you got AD. What, you want to act like you ain't learned them lessons? No, you got to stick to the plan when it comes to guys' health. And when it comes to AD's health, you really got to stick to the plan. So I'm not of the mindset that we need to be risking his health for the circumstance that we have in front of us for this season. No. Not when his health affects next season. Hell no. I'm not risking this season and next season for a chance to beat the Rockets when losing to the Rockets doesn't mathematically eliminate us. That makes no sense at all. So that's what I want to say, man. People got to weigh what it is that you're looking at. You can't just look at this game and prioritize it over every damn thing else, even if it has so much meaning to you. Other things just simply hold different meanings, and there are things that hold more meaning. Anthony Davis going down for a whole season, that ain't nothing to play with, potentially going down, rather. You don't want to play with that. Just so you can beat the Rockets? Hell no, that ain't what you about to do. What you're going to do, if you're doing things correctly, is making sure he has a backup in place. A real legitimate backup. You spend the extra $500,000 or whatever it is in taxes, as I was listening to Elder talk about it on Kicker TV's platform, I believe it was. Or maybe it wasn't Ticket. It might have been it was Kareem's platform, excuse me. But like, you're gonna find yourself in a situation where that's not the biggest risk. The luxury tax that you're paying isn't the biggest risk to complete your winning timeline, because you've already paid whatever you've paid to get to this point. And if you don't spend that extra, then the money that you've already spent, Lakers, was a wasted investment, because it can't give you the desired result unless you fully invest in it, Genie. That's the whole point. This is what we were talking about. You could throw $300 million at players, but if you don't have the right elements on the floor, those players aren't going to win, and that investment turns into a bad one. Either you're going to go in with the 300 plus 500,000 or whatever to complete your investment, or you're just going to buy a car with no wheels. You can get all of the bells and whistles, make that car the greatest, most beautiful Maybach in the world. But if you don't put any wheels on it, you're not going anywhere. And that's what Genie did. By not wanting to get this center, not wanting to pay the little extra $500,000 for the luxury tax on whoever, Nerlens Noel and Tristan Thompson, one of them dudes I don't want. You get them on the team so you complete your roster. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them dudes because I don't think they can help me in trying to retrade them. I don't think they're really going to stop Joel Embiid and all of that. Serge Ibaka ain't about to do nothing but be a turnstile layup line dude, right? Honestly, he ain't doing nothing. But that's not the point. Because he's going to do a lot more help in Wenyen Gabriel than Rui Hachimura is at the 4. He's going to do a lot more helping our situation than if we get in foul trouble, we have to run Rui at the 5. It just doesn't work, because Rui, regardless if he's big enough to play the position, doesn't think that position. So he's not going to be effective doing the things that you need him to do in those situations. That's why you get a Serge Ibaka. Because even if he can't do nothing, he's going to put Rui in the right position. So Rui's not running around trying to do too much or too little. And you can get your real 8 rebounds out of Rui. But if you got him playing the 4, he getting out rebounded. He's not going to be able to do the things that he does as comfortably. And your team is going to be out of position because other people are playing out of position to make up for where he's at versus where he needs to be. So these are the things that we left ourselves open for by just not getting a center last night on this roster. And it's unacceptable in a million ways because you have to win. This was a game where you could not lose because they are a losing team and you need to be able to lose other games potentially. You got 2 Suns games coming up. You got Bulls. We've already mentioned it. You know who we play. The Clippers coming, Timberwolves coming. These are all games that teams are going to be playing for their playoff lives. There's no guarantee you're going to win. I told y'all, Karl Anthony Towns is coming back. I told people, I was just speculating when I said that. But I read something now. It's official. He'll be back in a couple weeks. He'll be back for the playoffs. Probably for our game, just like everybody else who returns from injury. So it's like, look, that's a game changer. That's a Western Conference game changer. That's a juggernaut basically coming back to a playoff team who was a playoff team without him. They're going to vault at least 3+ games just from bringing him back. Those are 3+ games they probably go beat against you in the first round if you run into them, which probably ain't going to happen because they're not going to get up that high, but that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is the West is getting stronger, and we're making decisions to load manage and, lose games that are supposed to be scheduled wins for our season when we can't afford to lose nothing. So I just wanted to get up here and say that, as I'm watching Ja Morant come back and talk about how he's close and how he's learned his lesson and how he's doing all types of therapy and different things to help him deal with stress, I just realized that's going to translate on the court. So that's going to translate at the free throw line. That's going to translate in the last 2 minutes of the game. He's going to handle stress better, just in general. That definitely translates to clock management. So I know you're talking about a certified killer who was already playing with a lot of confidence, and now his spirit is in a space where it needs to be. He's going to drop 40 on somebody. I just know better, man. When you put a motivating factor like this in a player like that, he's coming. With the rest of the Western Conference being hobbled and unproven, and I argue the best Western Conference team, period, right now, us, ain't making good organizational decisions to put ourselves even in a position to actually have a playoff spot. We're going to be looking on the outside end, not be able to benefit from our own ineptitude, given the fact that if we miss the playoffs, we don't keep our own pick. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And I was listening to Elder speak. He was saying, the Lakers didn't even intend to win when they made the trade. They were intended to do early shopping. And it dawned on me that made a lot of sense in regards to what it is I'm looking at. So the Lakers aren't going to make any moves in the offseason. They're just going to bring everybody back, and we're all going to be very happy about that. I'm very happy about that. The problem is it does speak to them not necessarily having intentions of doing everything they need to do to win this season. And even after making such fantastic roster changes, you could see last night that they weren't all in because clearly we didn't have enough. When it's very easy and simple to just give somebody a 10-day and have them in that position until, a couple 10 days to get it done, while you're in a space where you can't afford to lose no games. Now, if this is a different point in the season, the urgency's not there. But now, when all that you've done accumulates to you having an opportunity, and you don't want to see that opportunity through because you don't want to give an extra $500,000 to somebody or something, it just doesn't make any sense. Why would you invest anything in something like this if you can't see what the desired result? And that's my thing. You put a single coin in this if you didn't want to see it win. Are you wasting your money? No. Give a couple extra dollars to it to see it through and get what the desired result is. After all, an investment is just a return on your money if you do it right. But if this team don't win, I don't know that you get the return on investment that you were intending anyway. So I don't know. I don't quite understand what I'm seeing, but it does speak to the same complaints that I had earlier in the season, and maybe we made the changes we needed to get better, but some of those neglectful decisions that weren't made still stand. We still needed to do certain things that we didn't do all season long. And as a result, our record is exactly as it is, and we're not happy. Our roster's good. Our coach is doing the best he can, but it ain't what we need. And we could bash him from here to the glory days, but at the end of the day, Darvin is just a rookie coach with his own ideas about things, man. Apparently, it seems he was raised in this modern era where, things that don't necessarily make sense to me make sense to him. Pulling yourself further away from the basket, both horizontally and vertically, meaning you're getting smaller and you're shooting a bunch of threes. It just doesn't, I don't think it makes no sense when the ball goes up to try to be shorter and further away. But nevertheless, these are things that he believes in. Shoot, salute the Kobe minute, and it's just things that has yet to work out for him. And so I could bash him if it makes me feel better. I call him all kinds of bad names and question his intellect if it makes me feel better. But at the end of the day, we just have different basketball philosophies, as I said yesterday in my video. And when that is the case, it's just going to look to me that what he's doing isn't smart. That doesn't necessarily mean that what he does doesn't have to work. That doesn't mean that my basketball IQ knows the first thing about what it is that he actually understands. But what I'm telling you is I've watched the game from my lens for 30 years. I've watched this game from within my eyes, and I have a healthy fear for losing. So my instincts are going to tell me when I'm at risk to lose. which is what I think makes me a good basketball mind. Because at the end of the day, even if I don't necessarily know what I'm looking at, I have a healthy fear for getting my butt kicked. And so I'm gonna rebound. I'm gonna box out. I'm gonna want the guys to set good screens. You know what I mean? Just in general, when you're playing basketball, you're gonna think certain things to keep your butt from getting whooped. Your instincts are gonna lean into whatever it is that otherwise doesn't put you in that position. And Darvin just doesn't appear to do that to me. He doesn't mind taking on the punishment of getting beaten so long as he can do other things in response to that on the other end that he's comfortable with. For example, he don't mind a layup line with Malik Beasley so long as he has the risk or the threat of Malik Beasley possibly hitting 43s on a team. Like that risk, that possibility of Malik Beasley hitting 43s is worth 70 layups on his head. I don't think that. My instincts tell me that's going to get me beat. My instincts tell me I'm going to be sad at the end of a game like that. So I'm not going to let that happen. You see what I'm saying? These are the type of instincts that I want my coach to have because I believe they're going to lean into me succeeding. You know what I mean? And sometimes when I'd watch certain things as a kid, I felt the same way, but it would turn out the right way, which helped me understand that I don't always have it right. Sometimes you run a four-guard lineup and you get the desired result. It don't happen very often, but we've seen it maybe twice. Well, we had one of them wacky lineups on the floor and we ran the score up a little bit. But it's just not something you're going to see very often. The game of basketball is about playing percentages. And sometimes I don't think what we do makes the most sense, and even in that regard. Leaving certain players open, not contesting certain threes, stuff like that. Nah, these are pros, man. Some of these guys that we leave to shoot the three have hit the three. And so my thing is, I just don't think we do the most homework we need to do. I don't think our priorities are in strategizing for victories as a team. A lot of times, I think we strategize for minutes. I call it minutes mentality. I think we strategize to make sure people are happy and to manage, personalities, which I think is a big component, but it can't be to the detriment of winning. And it does when we do it. And so I think we've gotten to a space where some of our old mistakes are starting to beat us up. And some of those old mistakes are still carrying over. On top of that, further beating us up. And last night was a prime example. His instincts needed to lean into playing taller and longer defensive players. Max Christie should have got real minutes last night. And we didn't get a single minute. And I've seen so many games where I felt like Bamba should have played, Winion should have played, and he gave him like 15 minutes and we lose. It's like stuff like that. It's just like, his instincts, they're not serving the Lakers. And so that's what it really comes down to. He's doing the best he can, and it's not giving us what we need. I truly believe that. I think the guys are playing hard, though. And I think if we replace him with a coach that doesn't motivate players, we'll be just as miserable. And we'll miss the hard way these players play. So I'm not lost upon that. Playing hard every night is not something that every coach can make players do. And this team does that whether they're schemed correctly or not. I don't want to miss that if we get rid of them. And I think I will if we bring in the wrong person if we were to do that. So I that's one of the reasons why I like certain aspects of what he brings to the table. I don't want that to get lost in my problems with him as a coach. The guys and how he interacts with guys and how they interact with him is probably really, really, really a strength of his from what I'm seeing. It's as I've said once before, when you scheme in ways that don't necessarily inspire, but guys still look you in the eye when you're talking to them, you're a special person. You're doing stuff that guys would otherwise complain about if you were a different personality. But because it's you, they kind of chilling. That's exactly the type of respect that Darvin's getting. I know most of these people, if this was Frank Vogel, the locker room would be broken with some of the stuff he's doing out there. If this was certain coach Byron Scott or something, the locker room would have been broken with the stuff that he's doing out there. I'm just being honest. We've seen it. These ain't hypotheticals. We've seen that. So Darvin being able to still get guys to believe in him, still being able to put his arm around guys, you know what I mean? I think that speaks to a very great trait that you want in a coach and a leader of men. But if the leader of men doesn't strategize properly, eventually those men are going to get frustrated. And that dynamic that they lean into is going to dissipate over time because at the end of the day, you still send them out there to do stuff that doesn't get them the victory. So all that rah love and stuff, at the end of the day, it's just going to be a hard conversation they're going to have with you. An intervention, so to speak, to say, brother, we love you, but you're killing us right now. And nobody wants to have that conversation with people they appreciate to Darvin's degree. But at the end of the day, man, we want to win, bro. So if the players ain't going to say it, I'm going to say it. His rotations are not what we need, man. And it's on him to get better in this small flurry of time so that we can get where we want to go. I don't think Darvin wants to fail, but I need him to get the help that he needs as a coach, assistant coach, to really coach him, man. We need Lionel Hollins. You know, I looked over at the Rockets bench and I saw Lionel Hollins over there. What the heck is Lionel Hollins doing on the Rockets bench? Do you know how bad we need Lionel Hollins on our bench right now? Like, these are the type of things I'm looking at Jeannie. I'm saying, I don't know how that plays out. It's not as simple as say, why didn't you bring him? It's not, it's not like that. You can't lasso the man. But what I'm saying is he was with our championship organization in 2020, helping our coaching staff. And now he's on a tanking team with a bunch of youngsters that ain't doing nothing. We need Lionel Hollins to help coach Darvin Ham, yo. Literally. He needs somebody, just like Vogel did, to help him. That's why we're not doing any good, because we don't have Jason Kidd. And we don't have Lionel Hollins. That's the difference between 2020 and now. And so if you really want to know what my frustration is, I just don't think Darvin has the help he needs. He don't have the veteran coach to help the rookie coach be a real coach, man. And just send him out there like he's supposed to have it all together and then proceed to watch him not. And I just think that is what ultimately is the end of us this season. Regardless if we make the playoffs or not, there's going to be a game at the end where we just get eliminated in the playoffs, because at the end of the day, we ain't going to have a better coach, man. We not. And we know it. So that's the Laker thought of my day. I know that I was going to try to make this an NBA chat video, but I really do have my team on my mind this season more than ever before. This is just an extremely intriguing season for God knows a million reasons. And, it's just, it gives you a great experience as a fan as it pertains to wanting to be, intent on your own squad. These last couple of years, our squad was kind of like, I like us, but I like the rest of the league too. Let's see what else everybody else is doing. I have allegiance to the Lakers, so I'm going to follow them no matter what. But our roster wasn't my favorite roster last year, not by any stretch of the imagination. This year, hell, my roster is about as good as any. I like us more than most. Tell the truth. I like us more than most. And so that's just a luxury for me. But at the end of the day, I look at my coach and I say, I like him very, very little than the rest of the field, man. Most of the rest of the coaches, I think I feel better about. And it's because they all have more experience than him at the end of the day. All of them. We gave ourselves a rookie coach and told him to win now. And that, my friends, is why we're not winning now. Because I'm telling you, yeah, we were out there without enough size, but there were things we could do with that roster that he didn't even try that could have supplemented us having a little more size out there. You know what I mean? The Max Christie factor is the number one thing. You just do not leave yourself with that type of athleticism, shooting, and length without having any experience leading into a game like last night. You should have been playing Max Christie all season long in spurts, at least 9 minutes a night, all season long. And his little turnovers and stuff like that, you don't overreact to that stuff. You sit him down, you coach him, and you send him right back out there to get better. And by now, if we would have done that, instead of running Patrick Beverley and all those guys that we run in the first half of the season, our record probably would have been the same, but our role-playing situation would have been significantly stronger. Significantly stronger. Because the guys who ain't used to playing would have been playing more, and they'd be better for it. So that's really what it come down to, is stuff like that. Patrick Beverley leaning on and stuff like that didn't make your team better in the long run. Did it really? Leaning on Russell Westbrook, did it really help the team in the long run? Then leaning on Dennis Schroeder and all them 3-guard, 4-guard lineups, did it really help us in any way at all? Oh, it's why our record sucks so bad. We lost most of them games that we played that way in. And as a result, now we can't afford to lose games like this. Well, we also can't afford to risk playing the player just the same. BDF 44, I thank you all for watching.